Hey, this is Ramon, Channel Safa 4, and welcome to my Bible study. Welcome to a new format. Okay, so let's try this out. I'm still using the headset. I know, it's kind of dorky. I'm experimenting with sound stuff, but I will have a new microphone soon. So let's start off with Genesis chapter 20. So this chapter opens with the origins of the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, 11 of them anyway. In this chapter, Rachel is jealous of Leah. So she gives Jacob Bilhah to conceive a child with. The maid birthed him Dan and Naphtali. Then Leah gifted her maid Zilpah, who bore Gad, then Asher. Leah then bore Issachar and Zebulun, then a daughter, Diana. Rachel then bore Joseph. The names of the 12 tribes have been interpreted differently throughout the years, and even through the lens of Christ's life by Eastern and Greek Orthodox Catholics. But in general, the names are in relation to our modes of interacting with God: vindication, struggle, good fortune, luck, reward, gifted honor, and hopeful prayer. Each one of these names coincides with one of the names of each of the children born in this chapter. This list, though, is not completely comprehensive. This list is sometimes related differently in different parts of the Bible, like in Exodus 16, verses 10 through 12, or in Exodus 21, verses 17 and 18, where sometimes Levi, Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh exchanged for the other on this tribal list. This chapter also repeats the Sarah and Rebekah cycles, themes of fertility and barrenness, as well as the Sarah and Hagar themes of jealousy between wives and the use of concubines. Yet, unlike in the previous cycles, the competition here is seen as positive and not as destructive, and it breaks the pattern started with Hagar and Ishmael. Yet these themes explored in this chapter are more fully developed in the character of Hannah in 1 Samuel. Separately, for me, and more interesting, Laban tries to outfox and outwit Jacob, but fails, and Jacob prospers. By miracle, possibly. Wait, I thought you said this was a new format. Isn't this what you always do? No, here we go. So, if you watch my Quran study, you know that I read the relevant verses. I haven't been doing that with the Bible study because I figured everybody's read the Bible, right? Well, the number of views on my videos doesn't attest to that. So I am instead going to start reading out of the Bible. Now, question, how do I avoid copyright? Well, I'm glad you asked. I bought a junk load of different Bibles. I now have one of every English translation. Yes, I am crazy. But I do have an issue. So every single video will be out of a different translation. I am going to begin with the New American Standard Bible. And every one of these will be a different translation. I know what you're saying. I could have just gone to Bible Hub, but I prefer to do it this way. So, all right. So let's start off with. Okay, I guess I should read the verse first and then give you the note, right? Because with the Quran, I do it the other way. All right, I'll read the verse first. Okay. So let's begin with verse 1 and 2. Now Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children. She became jealous of her sister, and she said to Jacob, "Give me children, or else I die." Then Jacob's anger burned against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God? Who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" So as you can see, the jealousy here between the wives of Jacob foreshadows the jealousy between the tribes of Israel, the brothers. And you'll see this not only in the Joseph story, but also in later history as the tribes of Israel compete with each other in the city of Israel and Judah. Then we get to verse 4. So she gave him her maid Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her. Now, this might sound kind of weird to you, But the ancient practice of surrogate motherhood and ancient adoption is being explored here. The titles of wife and concubine did not have a significant difference in status in the wider ancient world during the time that this story is supposed to have taken place. Wife was a title reserved for women whose parents had been given a dowry, and or sometimes called a bride price, and whom had bared healthy male children that had lived into adulthood, making the title of wife interchangeable. So the adoption of the male child at the moment of birth by the wife was important in keeping her status over the concubine. So if you're barren and your maid or your concubine if your maid or your husband's concubine is going to have a child, you need to adopt that child at birth. Otherwise, you might lose status to your concubine. All right, next up is verses 8 through 12. So Rachel said, "With mighty wrestlings I have wrestled my sister, and I have indeed prevailed." And she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob's wife. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "How fortunate!" So she named him Gad. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. As you can see, that is the birth order. Okay. Then let's go to the problem of the unloved wife. So let's go to 14. Now in the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please, give me some of your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came in from the field in the evening, then Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he lay with her that night. So this is the problem of the unloved wife. And the significance of the mandrakes here is that it was thought to promote conception. Sometimes in some commentaries they'll actually say it was an aphrodisiac, although outside of biblical text I don't really see a lot of truth to that. So I think it was just meant to promote conception. All right, 21. Afterward, she bore a daughter and named her Diana. Then God remembered Rachel, and God gave heed to her and opened her womb. Rachel is the favored, and that's important to remember. Also, another important side note here is that Sarah, Rachel, and Hannah play a role in Jewish liturgy, while Diana is the only named daughter of Jacob, making these women extremely important in the Jewish and Hebrew context. Okay, and then let's move on to verses 25 through 27. Now it came about, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away, that I may go to my own place and to my own country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me depart. For you yourself know my service which I have rendered you." But Laban said to him, "If now it pleases you, stay with me. I have divined that the Lord has blessed me on your account." So, what's important here to understand is that Jacob is an indentured servant. This is setting up an understanding for the context of later Hebrew law. Basically what you'll find in the Levitical and Deuteronomical books. And his request has to do with the later Hebrew law concerning manumission. And again, Laban's use of illicit divination to find out information has to do with something that will be banned in later Hebrewic law. So it's important to understand where these developments come from, or at least where, according to tradition, these developments come from. So these laws do have a context within the Bible itself. Verse 32. Let me pass through the entire flock today, removing from there every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black one among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. And such shall be my wages. Of the sheep and goats. This is actually a long-standing Bible metaphor for willing followers versus stubborn individuals. If you're a willing follower, you're a sheep. If you're a stubborn individual, you're a goat. So I hope that clears that up. This is actually a metaphor. All right, verses 35 through 37. So he removed on that day the striped and spotted male goats, and all the speckled and spotted female goats, every one with white in it, and all the black ones among the sheep, and gave them into the care of his sons. This is Laban. And he put a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. Then Jacob took fresh rods of poplar and almond and plane trees, and peeled white stripes in them, exposing the white which was in the rods. Now, this might not make sense, so this is going to take a little bit of explaining. So, first thing to note here is that this is an example of bad faith, especially on part of Laban. The trickery Jacob uses to outfox the fox is based on pre-Israelite folklore, which stated that which the animal saw during mating determined their offspring's appearance. The metaphor here, though, becomes even more obvious and concrete with verse 37, as the ancient Hebrew word for white is Laban. Another note about the portrayal of Laban is that the scheming is seen as underhanded, if not a sign of evil or weakness in one's character. Also, a 3 days journey equaled about 40 or 50 miles. And as for Jacob's cleverness, I know it doesn't really make sense, because even if we understand that it's folklore, how could that have worked? Let me hype up Jacob just a little bit here. As for Jacob's cleverness, if we can just push the folkloric aspect aside, what we see here is a sharp herdsman, breeding through controlled propagation, separating the weak from the strong at breeding time. Now, I would like to read one more passage to you, and then we're done for the day. So let's go to verse 41 through 42. Moreover, whenever the stronger of the flock were mating, Jacob would place the rods in the sight of the flock in the gutters, so that they might mate by the rods. But when the flock was feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. As you can see, Jacob was a smart man, or at least clever. Anyway, this is my new format. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll get better at this format once I get used to it. Obviously, I still have little bugs to work out, but I hope you really like this, and I will get a mic soon. Please like and subscribe. Comment down below. Ask me questions. I'm ready for them. Let's have a conversation. Please share this video. Please subscribe. Talk to you later. Peace. Bye.